game tag's getting really
hammered.
Yeah, it's not having a good day.
It's losing its like integrity.
Mark, you talked about in the panel working on Lord of the Rings, and you kind of wanted to leave the industry in like that particular genre, like something better. With something like The Quest, I mean, it's really exciting, really popular. Do you see this like as a live, immersive, like pop-up event at different cities, or?
Oh, we would love nothing better,
right? Yeah,
than to do a live, immersive experience, and we have talked about it. I mean, to do something. The great thing is, only with a partner like Disney could you really do it justice. But that would be.
We've dreamt of that for a long, long time. Because then you could have more real people to have a better experience. It is a little capital intensive.
Yes. Yeah.
Because in order to make it not a high-end Ren fair, like you really want it to have something that's unique.
Right.
But we've thought about it a lot, and if we get a next season, which hopefully go watch the show. We have an idea that we want to put into the show that would be very easily ported into something that you could travel around. It would be contained.
It would almost have to be like a live theater, like like a Tony and Tina's wedding. I'm dating myself with that reference, but
not at all.
But you know what I'm saying? They would have to have at least an element of that as part of the immersive, because that's what's the unique and distinctive element. Otherwise, it is just. By the way, we love Ren fairs. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you don't have that, then it's just we're just walking into an environment, which is cool. But
when you guys started working on the reboot of this, talk about the decision to change the things that you did change, mainly going from using adults to using teenagers.
Actually, not really. Sort of the biggest change is not even the kids. The biggest change is that you'll see this is a true scripted reality hybrid. So the original was a reality show with scripted overlays. This actually has its own, a full scripted locomotive. There's a ton of content that happens without the kids present. And then you have the interaction of those same scripted characters with the kids. So there's a lot more mystery we got to dive into. There's a lot more intrigue and things that don't happen in front of the kids' eyes that is happening sort of parallel paths.
And what's really fun is...
And they end up intersecting.
And as a viewer, you get that kind of wonderful dramatic irony where the audience is going to, when the kids are saying, do you think it's possible that could be, do you think, what do we know? And then the audience is going to be like, no, yes, you're totally right. Don't trust her or him or whatever. So yeah.
What was the casting process like, especially for kids? Because, I mean, they can be really hit or miss to deal with, especially teenagers.
Yeah. We had a great casting group that went out across the country.
Yeah.
The first prereq is that they love the genre. Yeah. There's a nerd test.
There's books, games,
movies. And then once they sort of satisfied that once we met with a ton of kids, it's just sort of the kids that had those values that we felt a One True Hero would have, or if they didn't even know it themselves, that we could see it in them. And Disney, we all sat around and tried to pick the 8 lucky teenagers, and then we had the pandemic, so we waited a year. So they came in bigger, taller.
Who knew that kids grow? I don't have kids, so I said to Jane, what's going on?
After 3 months, one that's like this tall.
Oh yeah, it was a lot. It was fun. Actually, we were like, oh, hi.
Coming from Lord of the Rings, which created this world, transformed New Zealand into Middle Earth, was the money on the screen, because just in the trailer, you can see this is a production. Was that a requirement for you guys to get involved and move forward, or just a happy accident of working with Disney?
It was organic. We put together a plan that we knew would enable us to make the show worth making, so that reputationally people would say like, oh, this was worth the effort. And that equated to a number, which then Disney approved. So it wasn't like a top-down thing like, we'll let you do it, but here's how much you have. Like, it was like, they said, tell us what you need to do the bold thing we're asking you.
Yeah.
So you could get dragons instead of tennis balls.
You have to, because otherwise 2 things happens. A, we look silly. But B, the kids have nothing to push against.
Yeah.
And then the reactions seem false. And then you're watching people pretend, and they're not professional actors. We watch people pretend all the time, but they're professional.
Right.
So it was imperative that it feel real and that they have reactions that were grounded in something that, if you have kids, that would look like what your kids would do. And Disney was a wonderful partner. They see this as a brand new form of storytelling that is important to their mandate. And I think that you'll probably let them speak about it, but I think that there's more coming from different creative partners as well. So we find it really exciting.
Which the pandemic changed the timeline, I'm sure, a lot from the original. So from the very first concept for the Disney Plus show to the end of editing, what was that timeline like?
Right, it was weirdly, let's see, it was a year before the pandemic that we had our first meeting, right? We were supposed to shoot in July of 2020, so we put a pause, obviously, and then in August of 2020, they called and they said, we still want it.
But you have to make it here. It's somewhere nearby.
So this is good fun inside baseball stuff. So we were supposed to shoot it in December of 2020. And a wildfire tore through Calistoga and burnt part of our set. And there was a bit of we waited through a pandemic, and then this happened. And God bless Disney, they kept sticking by us. So we moved it to January, and then Omicron just skyrocketed. So then we moved it to February 2020. So it was a year ago that we made it. So I guess what is that? 4 years? 3 years? 4 years? 3 years?
Yeah.
Something like that.
Well, congratulations on, I work in unscripted, and just from development all the way through to the finish of post-production, this just seems like just such a huge accomplishment. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Can you talk a bit about what it was like to have this hybrid on the production side? You have writers, but you also have field producers and then story producers in post, and a little bit more about how all those teams work together, or how it all came together.
It was kind of, you saw it, I don't know if you watched the panel, but we all get along really well. We really like each other, we respect each other, we were fans of each other's content, so that always helps. So that sort of trickled down. And we made sure, we world built first, what's going to happen in Everrealm in this season generally. What are the stakes? Who are the bad guys? Who are the good guys? All the basics. And who are the characters that we're going to do? And then worked with all of us, including Disney, to flesh that out. And then once we were on set, the field producers and our world builders sat watching the screens together. And when the world builders were like, one of the kids just said this thing, let's write that into one of our scripted scenes so that the scripted characters are talking about the kids. And we kept doing that, and actually there's several moments where we just pulled audibles. I won't ruin it, but when you watch the whole thing, call me and I'll tell you. But there was this one moment where we, I think I could say, we brought our bad guy into the kids. And we did it through technology that we had available. But we brought it right to their doorstep, and we weren't going to do that. That was not part of the plan, but we were
But something happened that made it.
Yeah, they were taught. It was just they were sort of a little bit disconnected, and we just put her right in there.
Awesome.
So it was fun. And they were like, what is happening? And it was pretty fun.
That's cool.
Are you able to talk about the storyline at all? We know these kids are called, they're chosen to go on this quest. What's the story?
Well, Everrealm's sort of spiritual center are the Fates. And we're introducing a new concept, which I guess I probably shouldn't say, but they're sort of the anti-Fates. And this has been a lifelong, eons-long battle between good and evil. And the balance is starting to shift in the wrong direction. And the Fates call the kids to bring them in to unleash an ancient prophecy. And the kids have to, Elise talked about this a little bit, have to put together an ancient artifact in order to help find out who the one true hero is and who's going to be the one to vanquish the evil sorceress Tsunami.
But one thing that's a thematic that's not oversharing is this prophecy is old, and not everybody in Everrealm subscribes to it anymore. Some do. So it has parallels to our own circumstances, like, and so that alone sets up a dynamic that's interesting.
So you guys were trying to do a lot of this stuff on the fly, like you're saying, but you're trying to integrate things like practical magic moments and challenges and stuff. But how do you keep it, on the set, you're keeping it safe and you're trying to keep it like off camera,
right.
But everything's of the world. So how do you do that? How did you mix that
That's
together?
our magic sauce.
I know, right?
It's, look, we did a version of it before, which helped, so we knew how to work with each other. It's a bit of like monkey bars. You sort of you're planning the monkey bar that you're going to, and you just hope you're not lying there with one arm waiting. There was a lot of hopscotching from a production standpoint, so that you would have your camera teams with the kids, and then they would half of them would hopscotch to the next thing that the kids would do. And we did shoot some of the scripted content separately.
If it was purely scripted, if it involved no contestant.
And we would shoot some of the coverage of the scripted actors for the scenes they would have with the kids. Because once the kids show up, it's one take. People mess up, they mess up. If they don't, and then we would just bank as much content as we could. And that was, I guess, I don't know if that answers.
Yeah, no, I mean, I was just thinking the whole time of like the safety aspect of practical magic and it not being like a tight set of kids running around.
Yeah.
Like, how do you do it?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there is, we built in stop downs into the storytelling, right? So there's stuff that happened to the kids that was never on camera.
Right.
So we would build in, like Mark said, it's the biggest surprise party that you've ever thrown for anybody, because we would know they need to be stopped down. So how are we stop them down, and what are we having them do? Yeah. And so we came up with activities that they would do while we were getting cameras and everything.
They were all consistent with the storytelling, but they weren't necessary to be on camera at the end to make the story work. If it turned out great, we could have put it on camera. I mean, we could have.
And then we would build certain rules in to protect them. So there's one thing later in the season where there is actual potential danger, and we just made sure our scripted characters were like, here's what you guys are going to do to stay away from the physical.
And that was always really smart.
So the physical danger is sort of where you are, but not where Mark is.
Yeah, and the scripted characters say like, oh my gosh, it's so great you're here. Crucial mission, you need to do X, while we're going to do Y. We're all doing it as a team, but we're splitting up.
Yeah.
We heard the challenges were a combination of physical and mental. Were they written for the contestants you had, or were they written and the contestants had to rise to
They were written and then the contestants had to rise to it.
Were there any incidences where the kids were just like, no?
Some were
Keep
harder.
your dragon, no.
Yeah, I mean, there was stuff which, there were some that stumped some people.
Yeah.
But there was never one where it stumped everyone, right? So there would always be a winner, and then the winner would help their friends sort of accomplish goal.
Love that.
So they still had to continue. They had to continue it.
Yeah, because remember, from their perspective, they need to move to wherever they're moving to next. So it's not like that some producer's going to walk on set and then like, oh well, you people are still stuck in whatever challenge you're stuck in. So no, so
they definitely had a little bit of that military no man left behind vibe. The kids.
Was that nurtured, or did that happen organically? Just a month?
It happened organically, and this is where our partners, the Amazing Race partners, are so good, because they're like, hands off, like we don't know, like you guys are on your own, So you had cameras on them, but nobody was helping them, so they just had to sort it out. So you'll see, frustration and aggravation, and along the way, of just things that some of them just couldn't get, and then they would. Their friends would come and say, "Oh, you got to do it this way."
And people be like, "Oh."
Yeah. So yeah, it was.
Disney Plus streaming was the perfect time, because we can reach a global audience, and I think Disney was looking for something groundbreaking and very, very different, and we had that hybrid, the scripted the scripted intertwined with reality, and And also because Disney has all these wonderful, fantastical films and storylines, it just felt like the perfect fit. And the timing was right because Disney made their announcement, and we were one of the first shows, their biggest show, their tentpole show that they ordered from us. So yeah, that was a really big deal. So we were so excited that it was on Disney Plus.
Yeah.
Is there an aspect to it featuring kids versus adults, which is what the original show was, that you think changes how it'll be received, or how, as you, as the executive producers working on it, felt about it?
Yeah. There is a difference having teenagers versus 20-something-year-olds. There's not such a big age difference because these teenagers, I don't know if you've seen 13-year-olds these days, but they look like they're 18. Yeah. They are 13 to 16. You do see them mature and grow. There's such a, what I love about this series, and because we have teenagers, you really see genuine and pure teenagers at a time in their lives when they might be feeling, the hormones are raging, right? So insecure or wondering about how they fit into the world and who I am and what is this all about. And so not only do we have a great storyline for them to interact and play in, but we see a lot of growth on their part. I'm not saying that we didn't see growth in the other series, right, but there's such a change in kids when they need to see who they are and become something that they don't know yet who they're becoming. So when you're young like they are, a lot of them come into this with like, I'm shy or I don't know, and then all of a sudden you see them building confidence and growing, and every episode, there are challenges that have their mental or their strengths, not physical strength, like some of them a little bit, but there's different challenges that will touch on each of their strengths and weaknesses, and you can see them trying, whether they fail or succeed. There are no eliminations. So they continue to have this experience throughout the whole series where there is growth and there is inspiration for viewers to see what's happening. And it's like, wow, I never thought that person would step forward and be the one taking charge. Because maybe in the beginning of the series, they were like the wallflower. And all of a sudden, this person evolves and this person blooms. And all of a sudden, they're just like, okay, I got this. We're all supportive of each other. There's no nastiness between the kids because they're all going for a common goal. So they all come together and support each other.
Really cool.
I hope I answered that.
When you're making the decisions, I love that it's collaborative.
Yeah.
And I'm not super familiar with the original if it was the same way. Like, why did you make that choice versus making it similar to like Amazing Race where it's like everyone's on their own path?
Yeah. Well, because we took these, the storyline is we took these kids that are pure of heart, these teenagers, and they were called upon by the fates to save every realm because they're pure of heart, and you'll find out more exactly why they were chosen. But each teenager and within the casting was chosen because of their qualities, whatever their wonderful part. They all had wonderful qualities, different. Some of them had similar, and some of them are very different from each other. And they all come from all walks of life across the country. And by bringing them together, we really wanted to. We didn't want anybody to be eliminated because we wanted each of them to have that personal growth and an experience that was very fulfilling for each of them. When you get eliminated, it's pretty upsetting, and you don't get to experience the whole show, the whole experience, even on The Amazing Race. It's like, oh God, we're out. It's the first episode. They don't even care about on The Amazing Race. They don't care about winning the money. They just want to see where we're going next. What are we going to do? And that's what we wanted for these kids. We wanted them to be able to experience every single challenge, every single creature, because the story is so good and there's so many exciting things to see. We didn't want any of them to miss it. So we did make it a non-elimination. And because of that, that group became very strong, and there is a common goal that they're fighting for.
I have a 14-year-old, and I saw on the website the old series, they called him Banished when they were like thrown off the show. I was like, if I told my 14-year-old he was banished, I wouldn't see him for a week. I mean,
not even PC anymore.
Right.
You can't say banished. Yeah, so they all stay. They all stick around.
You talk about for the competitions that it was really based around like the storyline. Are they more psychological? Are they more physical? Or are they a combination of both?
It is a combination. So again, working towards what the kids strengthen. Every kid had their own thing. One kid might be a great gamer. One kid might be, great at puzzles, or one of them is very dexterous. So all the challenges will hit on each one of their strengths. And then we found out that the other kids who we didn't know something about, all of a sudden they realized they were good at something, that they were like, I didn't know I was so coordinated and well balanced. I didn't know I could do this. And yes, the challenges are organic to what's happening in the storyline. So it's not like there's the storyline, the actors are talking. It is literally the actors are talking. Maybe say you're all the paladins, you're all the kids, and I'm one of the princesses, right? So I'm just like, okay, that sound, we need to go outside and figure out what it is. I need all of you to grab your gear. We're going to go outside, and we're probably going to have to move this thing. And so it's seamless, meaning that the actors are pushing the storyline, and the kids have to do what they're being told, because they know that they have to bring this from here to point A to point B. And if you do that, then something will happen. So that's the seamless part of it. And there are still challenges, because of course there are a certain amount of kids and we have to build the challenges, but I think you'll find that they reflect what's happening in the story.
Really cool. Thank you.
Yeah. Did you find that because it is unscripted mixed with the scripted, that there was anything that happened that kind of threw off the storyline?
Well, that's the beauty of reality, right? So all of a sudden you have the script that you've written, and we've also brought the actors. One of the things that we did during casting was make sure that they were really good at improv. So just like you're asking me a question, that they are able to answer it in character and know who they are as that character. So if you said, are you married or do you have children? The character would say something, right? I'm not an actor, so I'm not going to tell you what I know. So I have a friend whose name's Sarah. It's funny.
We're everywhere.
The same exact name.
Is she a redheaded chef from Canada?
She is a redheaded chef.
She's everywhere. If I Google my name, she's who pops up.
Yes, I used to work with her in a restaurant when I was in college. She was a chef. That's crazy. She's in the East Coast. So anyway, you have a twin out there. What was your question? So what was that?
Sorry.
It's okay.
Story change.
Oh yes. So what happened? There were some amazing moments where we were all just like, oh my God, that was amazing. It didn't change the storyline, but there might be a moment where one of the contestants, one of the kids, struggled with something, or they didn't complete something, and you feel bad. You let your team down, or whatever you did. So there's a moment where this one, I won't give it away by saying this, but there's two of our contestants talking, and they're sad, and we send in one of our actor asked to be sent in. I want to go talk to them, because there was a bond, there was a connection, a real connection. And she sat down with them, and she had a full-on conversation and built this person up, and took the tears away, and gave her a reason to think, okay, I didn't do well in this moment, and you didn't do well in this, the two of them, and so, but that's not where it ends. There's so much more you can do, so keep trying, keep going. So it was just a beautiful moment, and they were, both the two of them that were being spoken to, they were like, okay, we got this. Let's get back in there. And they were like, we got this, And they were like, the fire was lit again. So there were real moments, because we're real people, And so we let them have those moments, those real moments that are really inspiring.
The fans of The Amazing Race know how it shut down the show for over a year because of COVID.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit dealing with kids and COVID and the protocols and keeping everyone safe and how that impacted the quest?
So fun. Yes, Amazing Race got shut down in the middle while we were filming, and then we came back 19 months later. Thank God that season is done, but it was amazing.
Right.
So the kids, so what we might have done from the first one, they all lived in the castle, and we would have wanted that to happen, but because of COVID, we had to be very careful where everybody was sleeping, where everybody was staying, and of course, because they're teenagers, the parents were there to make sure, because they're minors. They were really amazing, because everybody knew what we were going into. And for them, it was better to be in this amazing fantasy world on a castle for all these hours every day, roaming free without their masks on, because everybody was tested, and we're like, okay, we're going to go now, rather than being in their homes and not going to school every day or not going out with their friends. So because everybody was tested all the time, they actually had some normal time. It was better for them, better for all of us to be at this castle. It actually felt fairly normal, aside from we had our masks on around them. but I think it was good mentally for everybody to be there rather than being locked up at home in our pandemic bubbles. So it was good. They actually made friends. And they did homework together, and they got to do things together. Yeah.
That's awesome.
It
That's
was
great.
really good. It was good for them. It was good for all of us.
It was so obvious on the panel how passionate you guys are all, like, and just personally invested in this. Is there something like that surprised you, like a personal takeaway that you weren't expecting, or something you're going to bring with you to your next project?
You know, I just really fell in love with all these kids because I got to know them. When you do casting, you see 3-minute video, and then you can we interview them and get to know them. But actually meeting them and learning about them, I love working with teenagers. It was really special. And what was my takeaway? I just liked that it's an inspirational show that your whole family can watch. I don't know, I have a 13-year-old, and what's happened during the pandemic is she goes in her room and she's watching her screen, and we've all kind of go off into our, because I'm working from home. This is something where it's going to bring your family together. You're going to want to watch this with your parents, even if you don't have children. You're going to want to watch the show if you love fantasy. So I just think that it's like Jane said earlier, it's an outlet that's positive and inspirational amongst all the negative things that are happening in the world right now. So it's a feel-good show that's exciting to watch because you don't know what's coming around the corner. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
We've had it wrong on 2 tables. See everybody. We finally got ours right, and then everybody else has been turned around.
Hello.
Hi, guys.
Hi, buddy.
How are you doing?
Very good.
Rob, during the panel, you talked about how passionate you were for the show. Everyone's passion, but for you especially, if you had this when you were a kid. Talk a little bit about the show with kids versus using adults like the original show.
Yeah, I mean, both are great, and the hope is that we'll see a progression of ages and different. We were just talking about, like, how great would this be to do with your dad, right? Like, 'cause we're in a generation now where we all grew up with Star Wars and Star Trek and Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter. When you think about Harry Potter's 20 years old, that's mind-blowing. So we're passing all of that to our kids. So how cool would it be to now have that season where parents are involved because they love fantasy as well. So for me, had I had that and been able to have that experience as a young kid, I grew up in a very tiny little town. I was, I keep saying it was like 2 cows and a stoplight, but I grew up in Rhode Island. Not a lot of like support groups for, in the 80s for young gay kids. So for me, I sort of immersed myself into the world of fantasy, and what I loved were movies and books and reading and getting into these creative worlds. But I'm also an artist. So all of that creativity to be able to come out, that's why I love coming to like Wondercon and Comic-Con, because that you see the creativity of everybody. And this world, when it's funny, we talked about this over the past decade. When I was a kid, it was being a nerd. Now it's being everybody. Because we, as the original nerds, opened that door for everybody to come out and be like, oh shit, I like this too.
We won.
We won. Right, we won. Oh my god, I'm making that t-shirt. Still making that t-shirt.
Love it.
When it comes to creating the storyline and the creatures, how involved were you guys, and like how did you even narrow it down with such a vast fantasy land of everything you could pull from?
Well, we worked with our writers, and they created with us the story and everything, and where we thought we had Spectral Motion, this incredible creature. What do they call it?
Special Motion, it's Mike Elizalde and his wife, and they
do
create
Guillermo del Toro's movies.
Did Hellboy, they do the Monster and Stranger Things. They're just bonkers good.
So with our storyline comes up with each episode of like, okay, which creature can we create? So we all throw in ideas. Okay, let's have a witch here, an old hag here, some dragon type person here. We just liked it. And Mike Elizalde from Spectral Motion just said, how about this? Some with big antlers and this and that. And that was the most fun part was going to his shop and seeing the designs and work that they've done. It's just, do you like the eyeball doing this, or pull out something? It's like, oh yeah, it's really great. But
the drag you out, we're like, maybe some more clothing on the drag you. Right. First he was like naked. I was like, Disney Plus, let's put some clothes on.
Yeah.
The quest after dark.
The quest behind the scenes after
There's
dark.
one creature that's dressed like he was going to the Met Gala.
That was Johnny Woodrick's fabulous costume. Yeah, it's a really good costume.
So is it a big mix of practical and CGI, or is it all practical?
It's all practical.
CGI is well after we all left, so the kids were never part of it. They never were in front of a green screen, anything.
Right.
It was just additive in the end.
I think that adds so much.
That would suck, right? Like, you're a kid, we tell you you're going to go into a cool world, and then we're like, okay, stand up against that green screen and scream. Like, it's just, it had to happen to them.
This is a monster dragon.
Right. We had lasers and lights. There's a moment where, I won't give anything away, but there's a moment where they have to turn something on, shall we say, and that sounds terrible. They have to turn on a device, and it had to happen in front of them so they could see that it goes on and be cool enough, and then we would enhance it in post, but it happened to them. So everything that you see was happening to them. All of our monsters are head to toe, every inch covered. So you never had like a monster that was just from the waist up because it was too expensive. Every monster is done, every costume on the monster is
every detail.
Every single detail, like down to like getting them as wet as possible before the kids would get there, because we would shoot for like an hour and 20 minutes, right? So they've got to stay wet and look like they're a reptile, and that they're sweating, and the God bless the actors in those costumes, because they just had to stay in the moment, and the kids throw real questions at them or yell at them, and it's awesome.
That's so cool.
There are like a lot of constraints with working with children in the industry. Like you were saying, an hour and 20 minutes of filming. Was it difficult to keep those children in character and like where it would just snap back and forth?
No, we're all kids, right?
I think they loved it. They couldn't wait to get out of school because we were shooting during the school year and lunch. They couldn't wait to get back in. And you saw it the minute they stepped on, and whether one of our actors was with them, they instantly, and I don't want to say turned it on because that's like they were acting, they instantly put the switch they're on in this world. They acted naturally, but they were in this world.
It's a real life Oculus, right? Like you take it off to go eat dinner and you put it back on again, you're right back into your character. So
I feel like it's like the reverse of VR. Like you guys actually put them in real world,
right?
As opposed to
they can
virtual.
actually
It's
really
amazing.
touch things and not kind of try to make the hand touch the thing.
Yeah, going to dinner is like the boring part.
Right, exactly.
And again, the environment, as I said in the panel, you were there as producers. I was like, I'm a history person, not a big fantasy person, but I was like, oh my God, you could just picture yourself back in the medieval times, back in that castle. That was easy for them, and we all felt the same way.
Coming from a Queer Eye background and very reality television, was it an adjustment for you guys as producers having the scripted and unscripted component to it?
We've both done scripted pieces.
I started in scripted movies, so I was used to that. I missed it. We went into reality because I had made a lot of scripted movies with my partner David Collins, who was one of the producers as well. But we never made a lot of money. We made a lot of awards. We got a lot of awards, but we never really made cash. And we just said, let's get into this reality TV thing. And what was our first Up at Bat? The original one.
It's a pretty good at bat. I mean,
yeah. And then to go up and bat again and do it for a second time was bonkers. And I think we approach most of our unscripted like scripted. Like our shows are more cinematic. They're just shot with different cameras. They have different looks to them, and we tell different stories. So I think it's a perfect blend of worlds we've all been in.
Can you
The
guys?
panel that the unscripted and scripted stories are going to sort of come to a head at a point and impact each other at a certain
It's
point
a
in the
twist.
series. Okay.
There's a
Could
twist.
you expand more on what?
Nope.
No. Fair.
Can you guys?
Twist if I did that.
Can you guys talk a little bit more about how you found that location? And like once you got there, like were they on board right away, or did you got to be like, no? Can you tell us a little
Let's
bit?
not tell that whole story.
Okay.
No, originally, as I said, we were planning to go to Vienna, Austria.
Yeah.
And one of the hardest parts, and I had spent long amount announced months and months and months and months. A lot of real castles, if they're owned by some historical trust or organization, I talked to a location manager from Game of Thrones, and we were talking about a castle. He said, it took me 6 weeks to get permission to shoot one day in one room. You know, and in Vienna, we stumbled upon Berg Kreuzenstein.
Yeah, good luck.
It was owned by one guy. One guy. It's been in his family for hundreds of years. The Count owned it, and he made all this. They had tour groups. So I said, "Can you cancel?" Yep. So we were all set. We hired our Austrian team. We had our wardrobe people. We had everybody lined up, and then COVID arose. So I went to. I had spent previously looking at castles around the United States. There were no real castles. There are mansions that look like castles. There's schools that follies they call them, just fake castles. We saw pictures of one in Texas. I love that castle. and
it was horrible. No, I should say it was horrible. It was a lovely place. But I knew we could do something with it because of the team we had. But it wasn't a castle.
It wasn't a castle.
We don't have castles in the United States.
There are none. And this is
we have White Castle.
Right. But this is the one. But they were a winery. So active winery, very popular. Castillo de Amoroso and Calistoga, right in Napa Valley. And because of COVID, they shut down. And they said, we were ready to go again. They said, we want to shoot in July. They're like, come, we're closed. We're completely closed.
They're awesome.
But then we just couldn't coordinate in time. So then we had to push a few months and work with them that they opened on weekends. We pretty much owned the place from Monday through Friday. On the weekends, we shot Saturdays, but we didn't go inside the castle where people were drinking. We were out in the woods.
Drinking. I mean, come on. Producers are like, oh, yeah, it looks like a castle and it's a vineyard. Come on. It was wonderful.
But we negotiated and worked with the owner. Again, and it was similar to Vienna. One guy owned it. No boards, no historical trust.
Literally went to the most amazing extent to get this to look real. Like, he brought bricks in from Italy, like everything was made. And you went downstairs and like the pendentives, like the way the ceiling was held up, it was like you're in catacombs in France or in Italy or Austria. It was amazing.
Yeah, we had to deal with Napa Valley, who had, at that time had really strong COVID and events. And we just had to really, we're going to be the strictest COVID procedures ever between Disney plus all the unions, and I said, we're going to employ a lot of people. And I think nothing to do with the story, but one of my favorite, our caterer came up to me one day and said, you saved our company. She said, we were going under, but I had 500 meals a day for 6 weeks. You saved me from going under.
So not one positive COVID test.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Amazing.
I mean, we're shooting in tiny portions of the castle, and you've got DPs and light and all this stuff in there, and not one positive COVID test.
That's incredible. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you guys.
Thanks so much. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.